What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. I want to talk about Westbrook for a minute. I want to set aside the reality of Westbrook's fit and how things have gone in total with the Nuggets just for a minute. I think we can all agree, including Laker fans, that Russell Westbrook is a much better basketball fit with Denver than he was with either of the LA teams, right? So let's just take that piece and set it aside for a second. When Russell Westbrook signed with the Nuggets, you Nuggets fans will probably remember what I said. I said that he undoubtedly has a higher ceiling than Reggie Jackson. There's no way that Reggie Jackson could ever do the things on a basketball court that Russell Westbrook is capable of doing. But I also said that he has a much lower floor than Reggie Jackson. And a lot of people interpreted that as he'll have games where he doesn't produce. That's not it at all. It's strictly mistake making. Russell Westbrook is incredibly prone to mistakes, regardless of the surrounding circumstances of the game. Doesn't matter if it's the first quarter or the final possession of a big game. He is mistake prone. He plays with a lot of energy and a lot of passion, but it's not very refined. And I would argue when it comes to game plan discipline, attention to detail, he's one of the worst players I've ever seen in those categories. And so what ends up happening is Russell Westbrook will make all these good plays over the course of a game and bring all of this positive impact. But he just has a tendency to make these mistakes that undercut that success. So for instance, everyone's going to focus on the final sequence. I want to set that aside for a second as well. The overtime possession where he makes the post-entry pass to Jokic and then he cuts through the lane and then he just throws Nickeil Alexander-Walker to the ground with a swim move. Right in front of the ref. Easiest offensive foul call in the league. They're going the other way. Just turn the ball over for no reason in a big spot in overtime. In second overtime, Nuggets up by 1. He's guarding Anthony Edwards, the only guy who's been torching your ass over clutch time. He's guarding Anthony Edwards out up at the top of the key, and he just goes catatonic. And he's just standing up there 25 feet from the basket, and Ant just back cuts right behind him. Easy pass. I think it was from Julius Randle, if I remember correctly. Easy pass on the back cut. Layup. Now Minnesota has the lead again. Forget about just that split-second decision-making at the end of the game. There were two other situations in that same overtime sequence where Russ either tricked off an offensive possession or gave up a bucket because he's just mistake-prone. He just makes mistakes. And a lot of these people were making Laker fans out to be jerks for just pointing out these basic things that we learned from rooting for the guy. I still vividly remember in big spots many times, fourth quarters, 2-3 minutes left, huge possession, Russ forcing it in transition when there was nothing there and smoking a layup. You guys saw it again last night as he blew a game as they blew a game to the Spurs in a big sequence late down 2 as he smoked this crazy reverse layup and it led to another layup going out the other way. That happened to me, to other Laker fans rooting for him many times over the course of the year and a half that he was there. I still vividly remember a game against the Brooklyn Nets in LA. Stanley Johnson signs with the Lakers day of, does an incredible job picking up Harden full court all game. It's this really important game for the Lakers too as they're trying to float in the standings. And one of the biggest possessions of the game late in a one-possession game, Russell Westbrook is guarding Patty Mills. What's your job guarding Patty Mills? Game plan discipline, attention to detail. He's the best shooter on the court. You got to track him. He was ball watching just like that play I was talking about with Pat Mills relocated to the left corner. Harden hit him. He hit the dagger. The game was over. I've been there, guys. I wasn't trying to talk shit for the sake of talking shit. I wasn't trying to be personal. I wasn't trying to be a dick. I rooted for the guy for a year and a half. It was in my best interest as a fan for him to be good. And he just repeatedly undercut his successes with that mistake making. And then there you go, in a big possession late, Anthony Edwards turns the ball over. You're up 1 with the ball. You don't take a shot unless you are 100% sure you are going to make it. And instead, it's another one of those reckless transition pushes. Then he compounds the mistake after missing the layup by getting back into one of those no man's land, kind of floating around situations around the right elbow. And next thing you know, there's a skip pass, and he has to throw a reckless closeout, and he fouls a three-point shooter, and he literally turned a win into a loss. And look, Nikola Jokic after the game, excellent leadership, says this kind of shit happens sometimes. And he's not wrong. I literally just watched LeBron do it the other day. I watched LeBron the other day lose a shooter in the weak side corner and then turn the ball over on the baseline. Here's the thing. I've been watching LeBron his entire career. That was fucking weird. That was highly unusual from LeBron James. I watched Russell Westbrook this entire phase of his career. That is something he is absolutely prone to doing in these sorts of spots. And so, again, there are some realities, right? Like Jamal Murray's healthy, Russell Westbrook's probably not out there, right? There are ways for Mike Malone and the Nuggets to shield against this sort of thing by keeping him out of the game in those spots. But the problem is there is some reality to the fact that there is an opportunity. There is a potential outcome here where the Nuggets are in a big game 4, down 2-1 in a series, on the road at, one of these big Western Conference teams. And it's a late third quarter stretch where the Nuggets are up by 2 and Russ could take over the game and win it for you. And you could go into the mid fourth quarter stretch up by 12. That's the high ceiling. But there's also a version of that where he has 2 or 3 bad turnovers, 2 or 3 missed layups, 2 or 3 bad three-point shots, and a couple of bad defensive breakdowns, and suddenly your 2-point lead turns into a 10-point deficit. That is also an available outcome because of the wild oscillations of that Russell Westbrook experience. And the only reason I'm saying any of this is because at the start of the year, when I pointed this out, I wasn't trying to be a dick. I was just being honest about my own personal experience rooting for the guy and relaying a message that every Lakers fan will tell you. Even Clippers fans will tell you that this was a reality. It's not a big deal. They're going to be able to cover for it. They should be able to keep him out of these sort of high leverage situations, but keep an eye on it in the postseason for a big bench stretch and a big quarter there. He's mistake prone, and it could be something that ends up costing you a game. Last note on the Nuggets before we move on, Aaron Gordon. I don't think of this Aaron Gordon shooting stretch as some sort of anomaly or just random hot streak or anything along those lines. I genuinely believe Aaron Gordon is just a great shooter now. I think you can tell just by watching. I don't think this is something that takes any sort of expertise to pick up. If you watch him, his release is more fluid. There's very little wasted motion. He gets excellent energy transfer. I talk about this all the time. That's the flow of energy from your feet all the way through the top of the shot. Just watch Aaron Gordon when he shoots. It just looks easy breezy flip of the wrist. He's super confident with it. Made 2 more massive ones in that overtime game against Minnesota. Was stepping into one. Even the ones he missed were barely off. The guy is just flat out a really good shooter now. And I think it's a couple different things that I want to say about it real quick. First of all, young players. Aaron Gordon built a gym at his house, and again, not all of us have that luxury, as we know. But Aaron Gordon built a gym at his house and just shot thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of shots. He straight up said that in an interview recently. It's just a reminder that if you are a basketball player who wishes you were a better shooter, you're at point A, and if point B is you being a great shooter, there's no way to get from point A to point B without taking thousands and thousands and thousands of shots. There's no cutting that corner. And Aaron Gordon paid his dues, paid the price to become a great shooter, and he's there now. Second piece of it, I think that this Denver Nuggets season is headed for some sort of like second or third round exit. I still view them as a championship contender. I would be foolish. All of us would be foolish to write off Nikola Jokic and pretend like they can't get the job done. They absolutely can get the job done. And if Jokic and the Nuggets were hoisting the trophy in June, I would not be shocked. I'd be a little surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked. That said, I do think they probably lose in the second or third round, in that we're headed towards some sort of pivot this summer. The original construction of the team involved this idea that Jokic inverted the spacing by bringing rim protectors out around the elbow above the break area just because of Jokic's threat as a scorer in those ranges. This creates all this space along the baseline, right? That is how Aaron Gordon used to be an effective offensive player for the Nuggets, his ability to be a vertical spacer along the baseline. Michael Porter Jr. was the weak side three-point shot spacer, closeout attacking spacer, second side creator type of role, right? I believe Aaron Gordon's development as a jump shooter allows him to actually fill the Michael Porter Jr. role of being a weak side spacer who can run second side action, who can do those sorts of things for this team. Someone in a mailbag a while back pitched the idea of a swap between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets of Jaden McDaniels for Michael Porter Jr. And I don't even want to get into the realistic, how realistic that sort of deal was. Just, I want you to think of it just conceptually, meaning freaky athlete, 6'9", defensive-minded player that can't shoot versus 6'10", good defensive rebounder, guy who can play some help side defense, knockdown shooter, more of a scorer type, nowhere near as good defensively. I think you could get, if you imagine a swap like that, forget about Minnesota for a second, just imagine a Jaden McDaniels type of player at the 3 next to Aaron Gordon. They can flip those roles now, and they can have a defensive-minded 3 who works along the baseline while Aaron Gordon is now working the weak side as that shooter, spacer, second side creator. There is a certain flexibility Denver has this summer in their team construct that they literally would not have had if it wasn't for Aaron Gordon's development as a jump shooter. And I just think it's a huge development for the potential of Denver to keep this going, to keep this era in this construct of the team going with a minor pivot as opposed to having to do a more dramatic pivot.